So I thought I'd do a really quick video to talk about a bit of news that I think deserves a little bit more coverage. The reason being that I think it's going to really change the way that both hardware and software instrument developers create their instruments within these next couple of years. So this bit of news is about the MPE specification. So MPE is a specification that has been developed by Juice the past couple of years. And the big news is that it's now been adopted by the Midi Manufacturers Association as an official standard. So what does that mean exactly? So what we could do is we could take a look at Midi as we all know it kind of in the studio and break it down and talk a little bit about the limitations and then talk a little bit about how MPE expands and kind of breaks the limitations that we have that are existing in the studio right now. So I've created this max patch, just a really simple max patch that outputs Midi data from a Midi controller that I have connected. So it's just a regular Midi controller. And as you can see, it outputs 3 bits of information. So you have the Midi note, which is the note that I'm pressing. And then you have the velocity, which is between 0 and 127. And that's how hard I'm actually pressing. That's how hard I'm actually pressing the key. And then you have the Midi channel. And as you can see, even though the Midi notes and the velocity are changing with different keys that I'm pressing, the Midi channel is always staying the same. Now this presents a limitation in the Midi 1.0 standard in that if I wanted to do a pitch bend or I wanted to do some sort of modulation to one note, that wouldn't be possible in Midi the way that it exists here. And the reason is because all of the notes are mapped onto the same channel. So if I want to do any sort of pitch bend or any sort of modulation, any sort of change, that it would happen to all the notes that I'm pressing at the same time. And this makes it difficult as a music producer myself. One of the big challenges is that in the studio, it can be difficult to translate any sort of acoustic instrument with a lot of different layers of expressivity, something like horns or guitars or strings, and translating that to a software instrument, a sampled instrument that can be played and be played convincingly. And the reason is that, well, if you have individual string players, they're going to be playing those strings and starting and stopping and twirling their strings at different rates. And this is very hard to imitate in a software environment, especially with this Midi standard as it is. So the Midi polyphonic expression, or MPE standard, now extends on the possibilities of what you're able to do with a software instrument. And the way it does this is that it's able to take each key and put it on its own individual Midi channel. And that allows for added layers of expressivity. So just to go to the Juice website to show what those added layers of expressivity can give you, I've just got a little rundown here. So you got the Midi channel of the note, which is what we already have, except each note is now going to have its own individual Midi channel. And then you have the initial note value of the note that you strike. You have how hard you actually press the note, which is the same. But then you have these extended layers of expressivity. You have the pitch bend value. So you could press on 3 keys at once. And then if you wanted to bend the pitch of one of those notes, you could do that now with this new standard. Also the pressure of the note. So you can change the pressure of one of the notes. And the timbre. So if you have a horn section that you're trying to imitate in software, and then you want to change the way, because you know that if a player blows into, let's say, a trumpet, that they don't really blow into it at the same velocity. There's going to be fluctuations in the velocity in which they blow. That's very hard to imitate in a software instrument. So now you're able to do that more convincingly with this extended MPE standard. And then, of course, the note off velocity is also recorded. So this is going to really change the way that both hardware and software instrument developers is going to really extend the possibilities of what they're able to do. And just to show quickly that Juice does have a number of MPE classes for developing these types of instruments. So if you're developing any sort of software instrument that imitates anything that needs to have underlying levels of expressivity, that you may want to take a look at some of these classes and start taking them into consideration with your development. So that's just a quick rundown of what the MPE standard is, and I think it's a bit of information and a bit of news that's going to really change the software music industry and the hardware music industry as well. So I hope you appreciated this rundown, and I will see you next time.